This happened about 2 years ago. I, female and 21 at the time, was a junior in college, living in a small apartment off campus with one female roommate. We were both busy students and rarely home at the same time. One afternoon I was sitting at home by myself working on a project. A white truck that I didn't recognize pulls into the parking lot, which I can see from my window. I think nothing of it until I hear a knock at the door. A man, maybe in his mid-50s, bearded, with dirty white overalls and a white cap is standing there. I open the door a bit without letting him in. "Hi, I'm with Charles's Realty. We're doing a routine checkup of the smoke detector batteries and air filters." This was strange to me since the last check had been done a few months prior and we weren't due for another yet. Additionally, the property manager always called ahead at least 24 hours as per our lease agreement to let us know that the contractors they hired to do stuff were coming, and we hadn't been informed. I asked what contracting company he was with and if he had any kind of identification on him, since his truck was unmarked and neither his hat nor his shirt had any kind of logo on them. I usually don't carry that stuff around with me. My name is Charlie. It'll only take a few minutes. We're doing all the units in the area." It was suspicious to me. He should have at least had something to identify that he was who he said he was. I had that feeling in my gut that you get when something just isn't right. I told him I didn't feel comfortable letting him in, and if he came back with ID, I would feel much better. He got visibly angry, but agreed to come back later. He got in the truck and drove off, without going into any other apartments like he said he was going to do. Heart pounding, I immediately shut and locked the door and called my roommate. She agreed it was weird and suggested I call the property manager. I don't recall sending anyone to that property today or recently. Here's the number for our contractor. Why don't you give them a call? When I called the contracting company and described the man, they said that not only did they not have anyone on that route today or anytime soon, but they also did not have a single employee by that name or that looked anything like the man I described. They said I should probably call the police if it happened again. I was on edge for weeks, but he never returned. I don't want to think about what his intentions were, entering the apartment of a college girl all by herself. This happened about 10 months back, in February. I lived in a student house during my final year of university with 3 other girls who I had been living with since my first year. We lived in a tall but thin house in the suburbs of a moderately sized UK city, in what I call a fairly safe area. There was actually a police station less than a 5-minute walk from my house. The other 3 girls were on the same course, and due to the inability to attend anything in second year whilst one had been on a term abroad, had all signed up for the same modules. This meant that a lot of time they were on campus together as they had the same lectures, but often different seminars, and it wasn't unusual at all for me to come back to the house and be the only one there. For further context, otherwise I sound like a complete idiot, we also had a slightly strange landlady. On the first day I moved in, she met me at the door with my mom, and then proceeded to introduce us to basically her entire family, including her dog. Whilst it's a legal requirement in the UK, and I imagine many other countries too, to give a 24-hour notice if they are coming around and to arrange a mutually convenient time, our landlady seemed to have not picked up on this, even after one of her more assertive housemates told her loads of times we didn't like her coming around uninvited or numerous members of her family. Her daughter-in-law cleaned our house, her husband was a plumber, and her son did some handiwork, etc. She didn't get it. We resigned ourselves to random drop-ins. So sorry for the long intro, but I feel it sets the scene for how this came about and my weird reaction. I walked home from campus one day, and as usual found no one home when I got there. To this day I can't quite describe whether the door was locked when I got home or not, but I always locked it behind me when I go inside. I lived on the top floor of the house and never heard anything on the bottom floor, so it was always safer just keeping the door locked. I went straight up to my room and got into bed and probably spent 20 minutes on my laptop. 20 minutes later, I heard a sound from the floor below me, and thinking either someone came home or one of my friends had bailed on the lecture and had been home the whole time, went downstairs to see who it was. The middle floor had 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on it, and I checked the first bedroom to find it empty. I therefore went straight into the second bedroom, assuming my best friend was at home and ready to have a moan about my day. Inside, however, was not my friend, but a man who seemed to be trying to move the bookshelf. Now, this is where you have to understand that honestly finding a strange man in the house was not unusual, but it was annoying, and we had mentioned to the landlady Izzy's blinds were messed up a few weeks back. I think my mind probably just tried to put 2 and 2 together and came up with the idea that this man was here to fix the blinds. He turned to face me and, to be honest, didn't look particularly shocked to see me, adding to me thinking he was supposed to be there. "Thanks for coming round to sort this. Do you want a cup of tea?" He didn't actually reply properly, except for some weird grunting noise, which is not that unusual with some heavily accented northerners, which I took to mean yes and went downstairs to make it. I texted Iz while I was downstairs. "The landlady has finally sent someone to fix your blinds. No warning as per usual." Iz was quite an irritated soul, and she hates people going in her room, even people she knows. Minutes later, before she even replied to me, she had sent a text in a group message with our landlady. "We've asked you multiple times to tell us when you're sending someone around to the house. It's not really acceptable. I appreciate that we did ask for the blinds to be fixed, but we should still be given notice." I had made the cup of tea by this point and was taking it upstairs to the man. He was still in her room, not by the window now, but near her desk. But I honestly must have been stupid because I still didn't think anything of it. I set the cup down and said, "Let me know when you're finished." He nodded once at me. I went back upstairs and was in my room for another 5 minutes when my laptop came through with a message. "I thought we discussed this last time when someone came round. We will give you proper notice when there's a further issue requiring action being dealt with." Iz doesn't hang around. Clearly the lecture was dull. "There's someone over right now in my room and you're saying that next time you'll let us know and then don't?" She then sent something about her dad being unimpressed, which was a load of rubbish. "We haven't sent anyone around. Who was there?" I must admit that text made me feel suddenly very sick. My room was directed above Izzy's, and I could still hear him moving about below. Iz replied before I could. "The man to do the blinds. I don't know exactly who he is." "We haven't sent anyone. Who let him in? Who did he say he was?" Iz called me then. She asked me if I had let him in, to which I replied I hadn't. And then it dawned on me that he had probably been here before I even arrived. Iz immediately told me to go down and ask him what the hell he was doing here and who the hell he was. I don't know if she would have actually had the courage to do so if she had been the one at home, but I sure as hell didn't. As quickly and quietly as I could, I pocketed my phone and hurried down the stairs to get out the front door and maybe find help or call the police. But he was downstairs now. Our bottom floor has stairs from the sitting room going to the upper floors, and then one side is the kitchen and the other side is a hallway with a door to someone's bedroom off of that. He was standing right by the entrance to the kitchen as I came down the stairs, and I jumped out of my skin when I saw him there. I was bringing the mug down. I couldn't actually see the mug, but I literally didn't care in the slightest. It will sound quite stupid, and trust me, I feel fairly stupid about basically this entire event, but I was worried that if I just ran out the door, which was locked, that he would get me before I managed to unlock it and get out. So instead I said, "You're all finished then?" "I am." I silently moved to unlock the front door and he walked right out into the street, heading towards the river which was at the end of our road. I'm talking a big river that runs through the whole city. I locked the door again and checked that the back door was locked, before calling Iz, who had called me 3 times since. I couldn't help crying over the phone, and the girls skipped the second lecture to come home. Iz looked through her room, and whilst loads of stuff had been rummaged through and some of the furniture had been moved, nothing seemed to have been taken. Despite her having a laptop and jewelry in the room, even a big obvious jar of her tip money on her bookshelf was untouched. We perhaps stupidly didn't call the police as nothing had been taken, and we thought as we potentially might have left the door unlocked that it might not be considered an intrusion or whatever. I was endlessly nervous in our house after that, and spent a lot more time on campus, though partially as my dissertation was due a couple of months later. but we never saw anything more of it again. So, as stupid as I may sound throughout this whole story, it was 100% terrifying for me, and I don't want to relive that occasion. My friend brought it up a few months later at a party, and introduced it as the time I offered an intruder a cup of tea. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And if you would like to help support the channel, I recommend you check out the sponsor button down by the subscribe button. It will give you a cool channel badge and some other perks. Or you can check out my Patreon page if that's more of your style. And if you would like to submit a scary story, make sure you email it to urmaker6260@gmail.com. So in the story where they offered a cup of tea to the intruder, I don't know about you guys, but I'm wondering if since he didn't take anything, he might have placed something. Like a camera, or something. Because it seems quite odd that someone would break in and not take anything if they're not putting anything. What are your thoughts on the story? Make sure you leave them below in the comments. I will catch everybody in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true. Bad bye.